NLP stands for neuro linguistic programming, and neuro obviously is the brain,
Yep.
linguistic is the language, and programming is how things are interpreted and planted into your mind.
Okay.
And so a really easy explanation of it is it's literally the lost roadmap of the mind. And it's like you don't have this, you don't, it's like a parenting manual. Like you don't get a parenting manual, you just figure it out. And so many
Yeah.
people just figure out their belief system. But when you use NLP, it's literally like here's the roadmap of why you're doing what you're doing and how to overcome it.
Gotcha. And it
So it,
really ties in that language piece, correct? Like,
yeah,
because again, as humans, how are we communicating, our belief systems to each other through language, or how am I
yeah.
communicating to myself through my own self-talk? And so it feels like that NLP piece really ties in. Obviously, language is how we're communicating all of these messages, whether it's to ourselves or to the world.
Hmm.
And how do we be really cognizant of that so that we're using
Hmm.
our words like in a powerful way or something?
Exactly. Yeah. It's just a
Yeah.
different modality.
Okay.
NLP, there's got, tools and techniques. Hypnotherapy is another way to just reprogram the subconscious mind.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, and I know for me personally, I had tried a few different subconscious modalities, one on myself, or meaning, I knew I wanted to go deeper into my healing as an entrepreneur. I had tried some RRT, RTT, like it's all these acronyms, but again, all just different modalities of subconscious mind. And the one that I really liked was theta healing. But again, that's just another, it's developed by Viana Stabile, I think it is. But, she's just someone else who ultimately um has her own way of getting people into the theta brainwave state and using that.
Yeah. It's I love it because it's like not everything works for everybody the same way. And so
Agree.
when you've got different tools in your tool belt, if that doesn't work, that's okay. Just try something else
Agreed.
until you get
Agreed.
something that does work.
So Jen, can you share how, do you primarily work with female entrepreneurs as well?
Yep.
Okay. Can you share for some of your clients what areas, what are some roadblocks that you maybe see tend to come up that, the listeners, if you're listening, that we can just be more aware of? Because I do think there is power in just bringing the subconscious patterns to the conscious awareness. That's like step one. What are some roadblocks that you're seeing that can sometimes get in our way of, attaining those 5K months or our next income goal?
I think the biggest thing, it just comes down to belief. And most people think that they need another strategy, they need to work
Mm,
harder, they need to figure out their messaging. And while all those things might be true,
right.
if you don't have the belief in yourself, then none of
Mm,
those other things matter. And so it's a consistency across the board. Like when and it doesn't actually necessarily, people don't come with me like, I don't believe in myself. They never say that
right.
because it's a subconscious pattern that's running in the background that they're just unaware of.
Yes.
So when we start asking powerful questions and drilling down to what the actual facts are versus the perception of the facts, 9 times out of 10, it comes down to deep rooted belief. And
Yes.
so we're able to take that and subconsciously rewire those patterns and those things that are showing up and playing on repeat in the background.
I love that. And I love how you just shared there where oftentimes like the core wound where a belief was maybe made, right? Either like the I'm not enough or whatnot. It's oftentimes deep enough where it's not like you consciously are saying, oh, well, I just know I'm not enough, right? Or like, oh, I
Yeah,
just know that I don't believe in.
nobody says that.
No, no, right. Like, and so like we have to be aware actually that, yeah, like oftentimes it's going to show itself in our lives and likely your clients' lives in a different way. So I'm sure, like you said, through the power of questions, we can
Uh-huh.
honestly get to the root of like, well, wait a second, where is this coming from and what story are you, like hitting play on in your subconscious mind?
It was so fascinating when I started doing this work? It's like realizing that all of the beliefs that we have now are rooted in the past and childhood, from the time from
Yes.
0 to 6 and even previous to that. And
Yes.
when I started using NLP, there's ways that we can go back to times like before we're even zero, like times in the womb, times in past lives and generational, and go all the way back to our grandparents who believe something. It's now in our DNA and we're carrying it through our adult lives trying to run a business, and you can
Yes.
unwind all that stuff, but who in the world would know that?
Yes.
And you know, average Joe on the street, it's just like it's not a thing.
Right. No, and it's so true and it's so powerful then how when we get to that subconscious layer, how we can not only just clear and hear programs that we've had, right? But like you said, we can also be clearing generational trauma, past life stuff. Like it's just very powerful stuff. And
Hmm.
we think it's not making an impact in our lives, but it is.
Hmm.
And I think what I also love is I recently have started listening more to the podcast Michael Beckwith because he was at Jen and I both know the similar business coach James Wedmore, and he had an event in December where Michael Beckwith was the keynote speaker. And I was listening to that podcast, and he had someone on, and just some science expert. And anyways, they were just sharing how a lot of this stuff that we think was woo for the longest time, it's being proven now by quantum physics and by doing deeper scans of the brain and the subconscious level, or we can now see through epigenetics how things can be carried down through the DNA line, even from, like you said, our ancestors, our great grandparents, great great grandparents. So again, for those listening, I know sometimes it can feel like, is this real? But it really
Hmm.
is, and science is finally starting to catch up. And being able to also show evidence that, yeah, all of this, like, it's there, and we can uncover it and clear it and heal it.
There was a it's a fun story. This client I was working with last week or the week before, we were doing this technique called parts integration. It's where part of you wants one thing and the other part wants something else, and there's resistance, and
Mhm.
you can't move forward because you're being pulled in two different directions. So we're
Mhm.
clearing that.
Love
And she
that.
had never done any subconscious work before. And so I was asking her questions. And as she's thinking about it, she's getting these answers. And she's like, where did that come from? She's like, who's that talking to me? I'm like, that when you're hearing those things, that's your subconscious mind telling you where your next move is, where to go. Those are those intuition kind of things
Yes.
to where, she's like asking like, well, and like where is the root cause of this belief? And then she heard in the womb. And I'm like, great, how many months in the womb? And she heard 3. She's like, how is that happening? I don't
That is
understand.
so cool, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
She's like, I don't understand who's talking to me. And she's like looking around.
and yet, you know what I love? Oh God, I love that you shared that, Jen, because you know what's so interesting about people is even if we have never experienced something like this before, we all have this inside of us. So it's like, oftentimes we're thinking like, well, I need to be an expert on this or I need to read up on this. But guess what? When you start asking powerful questions, when you're with the right coach or just someone that you have a good therapeutic relationship with, the answers come. They're naturally already there. The voice
Yeah.
inside will start, like, it knows already. We just have to be able to unlock that. So that is really cool.